Oh, this is going to be hard. Welcome to the news wrap up. Normally, I do a lot of scripting beforehand. I go through all of the stories and try and piece them together and do a lot of editing and all that. And I just can't write right now. I've had a really hard time. I've tried, 3 separate times to put the stories together, and it's just not working. The news this week that has kind of overwhelmed everything else is TotalBiscuit. John Bain passed away on the 24th of May. That's Thursday last week. And that has kind of put a damper on pretty much everything over the last little bit. He finally has lost his battle with cancer. We all knew it was coming, but it did seem a little bit sudden here towards the end. John leaves behind Genna and Orion, his wife and son, and he passed away at home with them, as I said, on Thursday last week. I've always looked up to TV, always, because in a large part he's sort of responsible for what I'm doing here. And I've sort of alluded to that, but I've never really told the story totally. So I figured, well, hey, why not? This seems like as good a time as any. I have no notes. I have no script, so I don't really know where this is going. You're going to have to bear with me. If I go back, God, about 12 years, 13 years, at this stage, 14 years even, I did a little bit of work at Bioware. I was doing QA on Jade Empire, and I'd finally gotten my chance to be a part of the video game industry. I was on contract. I was making a little bit of money. I was so excited, and it was wonderful. And then I didn't get my contract extended, which was tough, right? I had kind of gotten my mindset that this is where I was going. This is what I was going to do because I've loved the game industry forever. Over the next few years, I went from job to job to job. I ended up working for the Canadian federal government, which is a soul-destroying, depressing existence. I was doing payroll for the RCMP. And let me tell you, the people that work for the federal government, they're lovely people. But everybody's basically waiting to retire. That's the corporate culture. You can't change anything. You can't make anything better, despite how much you might want to try. It's just not possible. And I was in a pretty rough place. This is 2009, 2010, 2011. Things were not going particularly well for me. I was doing okay, I guess. But, I was surrounded by people, again, who were waiting to retire. That's their whole purpose in life now, is they're waiting to retire. And some of these people are 30 years from retirement. Okay, this is how rough it is. So it's stable and that's fine, but it's just kind of a miserable, soul-crushing sort of experience. And to get through the day, I was playing a lot of World of Warcraft and whatnot, but at work, of course, you can't do that. So I have my phone and had my earbuds in, and I found this little podcast called Blue Please. I went through pretty much every episode of it. It was part of what got me through my day of sheer boredom, and I would just listen to these podcasts, and it was kind of neat. It was I liked this guy. He was good. He had a good radio voice and all of that. And for those who don't know, Blue Please was TotalBiscuit's World of Warcraft podcast. He did a 2-hour spot every week talking about patches and new content and mail from fans and all kinds of different stuff. And I loved it. It was great. It was just something that helped the day go along. And around 2011, mid 2011, he moved. He stopped doing the Blue Please thing. He shut the show down, and he was doing this transition into YouTube. Right, there were videos that he was putting out along the way, and I had watched just about all of these podcasts, and I thought, I could do that. I could talk to people and do some video stuff or do some podcast stuff or something along those lines. But I didn't have a lot of money. And so it took me about 6 months worth of bartering to try and get myself a condenser microphone that I could use and everything like that. And so 6 months after Blue Please ended, I started my YouTube channel. The inspiration came from John. It came from his transition over as a PC focused channel, looking, critically at different aspects of games, at a first impressions kind of style and things along those lines, but also critique of the industry, giving opinions, giving information to people. And I thought, I can do this. And I did. I got the channel started. I was up and running. It took me an awful long time to learn how to speak behind a microphone. This is not an easy thing to do. You got to practice, right? You got to practice a lot. So from there, I kept making videos, and I kept watching his stuff on YouTube grow and become even more professional than it had been. It just, everything was improving, and followed for quite some time. But at the time, I had always kind of, when you have somebody that you look up to, at some point you want to meet them, or you want to do something with them, right? I've got this guitar back here. This is the Dimebag Daryl signature guitar model. If I could have jammed with Dimebag before he was killed, I would have loved it. It would have been amazing, right? You want to meet these people. So, watching TB continue and the TGS podcast, which eventually turned into Co-optional, I had always had this sort of, and I maybe the wrong time to say it this way, but a bucket list sort of item. I wanted to be on the podcast. I wanted to meet the guy. I wanted to shake his hand and say, thanks. You helped me in a dark place. My depression of government work. You gave me some motivation. You gave me a little bit of hope that there was something that I could do. I could get back into the game industry. That thing that I wanted so badly when I was working at Bioware that I didn't get to have. This was a way I could be in the game industry and I could do some good. I just wanted to say thank you. All right, that's really all it came down to. I managed to meet him at BlizzCon. My nerves got the better of me. I walked past him 3 different times on the show floor, and I couldn't do it. Finally, I had to just swallow my apprehension, I guess you could say, and go up and meet the smarmy bastard. At some point a little bit later on, I became acquaintances and friends with Idiotech. You may or may not be aware of him and his channel, but he had been on Co-optional, and I was chatting with him about it after a bit after BlizzCon. He put me in touch with John, and I got an invite to go and be on the podcast. And my God, the week before, I was just beside myself. I was absolutely stressed beyond belief, because I know that he's got 10,000 people watching the show when it happens. I'm poring over my equipment at home, making sure that there is no possibility of failure. Nothing could possibly go wrong on my end, because that would be horrible. And right up to the show and during the show and everything about it was just great. John was great. Jesse was great. Dodger was great. I mean, it was just an awesome group of people to sit down and just chat about video games for 3 hours. It was so much fun. And I got to close the loop on how all of this began. I started the channel because of watching this listening to this podcast and watching the guy transition from the podcast thing to YouTube, and that's what got me into this. Quite literally is what got me into this. Within 6 months of him ending that show, I was doing this. So being able to close the loop with him and do that show, it was last year in March, was just fantastic. I've looked up to TotalBiscuit forever. As long as I've been doing this, I've been following his stuff. And so when I saw Genna tweet out that he had passed, that sucked. That sucked a lot. Like I said, I didn't really know where this was going. I didn't know how this was going to go. I have no script. I have no notes. I haven't been able to write anything in the last 3 days, despite my attempts to do so. So that's the news. That's all you're going to get. We'll see how this goes for future stuff. But thanks very much for watching. I have nothing. I have nothing. If you've got good TotalBiscuit stories, post them in the comments. Cheers.